Hello, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and today I'm going to tell you why Hasbro did everything right with Heroquest. And if you're new to this channel, then you don't necessarily know this yet, but I generally like looking at things from both sides. I'm generally a fan of taking an argument, taking an unpopular opinion or a popular opinion, and trying to see the other side of that. And right now, with everyone diving down on Heroquest, with everyone attacking Hasbro for the various ways they messed up, I like seeing things from the other side. Now, I never argue in bad faith. I genuinely believe everything I'm saying here today, while also acknowledging that there's always other sides, there's always other ways to look at things, and I will definitely hedge my uncertainties when they come up, when they are relevant. But before we get into all that, timestamps down below in case you want to skip to anything, and I want to start with a bit of an overview for those who have no idea what's going on, no idea what I'm talking about, although if you subscribe to my channel, you probably already do. Although if you're coming in the future, hi future person, then you may have no idea about all the drama going on right now. And the drama basically comes down to one thing. About 10 days ago, somewhere in that range, Hasbro put up a little thing, a countdown clock to Heroquest. Now, Heroquest is a game that's been out of print, hard to get, incredibly expensive for a long time now. It's an old Avalon Hill game that was just, hard to get your hands on. It's a really old, it represents one of the original dungeon crawlers. It's been iterated on since, both in its own version as well as the genre in general, and they put out a thing, we are coming. Something, a little countdown clock or whatnot. And rumors abounded, who knows what's happening, what's going on, but I think generally, people had an expectation of two things. And the validity of those expectations is a different conversation, but the two expectations were, one, that this would probably be a Kickstarter game, because after all, that's where most big box miniature board games go when they're trying to raise a lot of money. It's Kickstarter, right? And two is that it would likely have an updated reimagining of Heroquest, because what horrible business decision would go to basically putting out a reprint of an old game that doesn't possibly hold up in today's world? And those are different expectations with different degrees of reasonability applied to them, but at the end of the day, those were people's expectations. And then Heroquest launched, and first of all, it's on Hasbro Pulse, Hasbro's own internal Kickstarter platform, effectively, and people who knew about that may have already expected it, but I think the vast majority of people didn't know about Hasbro Pulse, and that's why they expected Kickstarter. And then two, it's not 100% clear yet, but from everything we can see, this is just the original game. No changes, no updates, this is just Heroquest, reprinted, with some updated art, components, miniatures. The art is mostly the same, the miniatures are being resculpted, some tiny adjustments, but overall, this is Heroquest in its original form, for better or for worse. And people are not happy. Now, people not being happy is a relative term. For every person complaining, for every person putting out a video of how horrible this is, we are currently at, well, not we, they are currently at 1.3 million, closing on 1.4 million. By the time you watch this video, I'd be surprised if it's less than 1.5. With 42 days to go, this thing will probably cross $3 million. So everyone being unhappy is a loose term that we have to define fairly liberally. That being said, I will acknowledge that most of the videos, most of the reactions, most of the people commenting seem to be upset. So one of the questions we have to ask here is, who are those $1.4 million worth of pledges? Who are those people? What do they represent? Because they seem to not be commenting or putting out videos in support of this. And even myself, who is putting out a video in support of this, I am certainly not backing it. So why do they do everything right? What do I mean when there's this mass outcry? What do I mean when I say they did everything right? So let's start with a few things. First of all, on a separate personal note, thank you, Hasbro. I am personally grateful for the fact that I don't have to sit there looking at another Kickstarter and trying to make a judgment call as to whether it's worth it or not. Now, specifically in this case, this one would have been I was leaning towards no before I even heard anything. Because what are the chances that Hasbro is going to put out a game that I appreciate and can get myself as involved with as I can in our current gaming genre? They are not. They are an amazing company at what they do. But they do not do board games the way you and I, or I don't know who you is, and Pence who's watching this video, but the board game sphere that I am in, the world of Gloomhaven, Madara, Tainted Grail, I don't even know what I have, Arena the Contest, Altar Quest coming up. In the world of board games that I am involved with, what makes me think that Hasbro will hold up? What makes me think that this will be a good game? My inclination from the get-go was to believe that this was a game not worth getting, because of the fact that just slapping a notorious IP on a game does not make you good at designing a game. If anything, it gives you the leeway to have a bad game and it will still sell. So I was already a little bit pushing against it, but I'm personally grateful that the fact that it's not even an attempt at reimagining, at least from what we know so far, means I can just walk away. I'm happy to walk away. No pressure, no harm, no foul. Good for anyone who wants it, fine. And secondly, before we get into all the things they did right, I will acknowledge two things that are wrong, because I want to define our terms here. And the first of which is international shipping. They currently have either incredibly high international shipping for where it does ship internationally, which I think is just Canada, but I could be wrong there. And for the rest of the world, it seems to be that there's no international shipping. International shipping is expensive. International shipping is a hassle. There are so many things that are annoying, frustrating, and just whatever with international shipping. And so they could have just raised their prices on that, doing what they did to Canada effectively, which is give you, the backer, the option. You want Heroquest and you're in Europe? Okay, great. Here's what it costs us. Boom. Enjoy or don't enjoy. Now, granted, people will complain about the prices, but that's clearly not something they're concerned about because they're shipping to Canada with those prices. So I can't really wrap my head perfectly around the international shipping question. That one, I think that they either should have just gone with US shipping and called it a day, or gone with worldwide shipping and just charged whatever it costs to get it done. I think they're cutting out a large portion of people and opening up the conversation for why are they not shipping internationally. So that one, and to be clear, it doesn't mean there's not a good reason. It means I just couldn't think of a good reason for it. So it is what it is. That one I don't have an excuse for. So I guess technically this video should be called Hasbro did nearly everything right, but that's less of a fun title in the end. And the second thing I'll note is I am coming at this from the stance of what is good for Hasbro, not necessarily what is good for the consumer. Meaning, when I say they did everything right, some of these things I do think are good for the consumer, and I'll get to what I mean by that. But specifically, the choice of Hasbro Pulse versus Kickstarter, when I say they did everything right, I think that they did it right from their stance, not from the stance of from the consumer, not from the stance of you or I who just want everything on Kickstarter for simplicity, but from their stance. There are a lot of people who are saying what in the world is wrong with them. By the way, myself included. I said it initially as well until I started looking at it and thinking about it. Meaning, what is going on at Hasbro in terms of, are they just stupid? Are they making bad business decisions? If you're talking about consumer friendly versus not consumer friendly, I will give you that. But I don't think it's nearly as bad or as stupid as you think or as I initially thought for them to have put this on Hasbro Pulse, locking out the giant amount of people who would have backed it on Kickstarter, but are unwilling to jump onto another system. I don't think it's a bad business decision, or at least I think you could argue either way, I would say. And with those disclaimers out of the way, let's go into what I mean when I say that they did everything right. To start with, no matter what they did, and I already touched upon this with my own opinion, no matter what they did as far as the gameplay, as far as the choice to keep the same gameplay or not, no matter what they did, people were not going to be happy. No matter what they did, if they changed things, it would have been changing too much. If they changed things, it would have been changing things wrong. If they keep things the same, it would have been they kept things the same. There was never an option on the table where they would make everyone happy. That is almost guaranteed. They would have had to design the most perfect of games, and we wouldn't have known that until it landed. And so anything and everything they did would have been open for criticism. And that's a starting point we kind of have to acknowledge, and I've touched upon this before in other videos. When we as consumers force a company into a choice of either way they're going to get criticized, then at that point I believe you are generally forcing a company into doing what's best for them from the business stance, because either way there's going to be pushback. Either way there's going to be flack. We have to be, in my opinion, holding companies accountable is a real thing. I believe in the concept. Again, I have a company, and yes, holding companies accountable is a real thing. At the same time, when you give companies flack either way, you're not incentivizing them to be concerned with that holding accountable. And I think there would have been pushback and upset people either way, and we kind of have to acknowledge that to a degree, unless you disagree with me, in which case, great, because we don't have to agree. But if you think that, no, people would have been totally happy with this or that, and no one would have complained, fine, but I just don't think that's the case. I think people were always going to be upset. It just would have been a question of what they were upset about. How could they change this and not that? How could they add this mechanic and not that? They updated the this and the that, but they still kept roll and move. They changed the roll and move, but they used a stupid system that's annoying and frustrating. Unless and until this game was validated by the market, it was going to be people being upset either way. Additionally, the cost of playtesting and design are now gone. They took that cost out of the picture as soon as they said, we are just re-implementing the game. Now, not out of the picture completely. I know they have people involved, and obviously whatever, they have expansion characters that are being developed. There still is a cost. But when you say we're just releasing effectively a nostalgia-based game, and not a new updated game system, Do you know how much you actually save from a design standpoint, from a playtesting standpoint, assuming you actually want to put out a good game from a playtesting standpoint? There is so much they actually save themselves by just reissuing a nostalgia-based product. And I guarantee you, you and I, as, again, you and I is relative, it depends who's watching this video, but you and I perhaps may have been frustrated at the fact that they're releasing a same version of the same game. But there are many out there who would not have been happy with whatever new thing. Just give me a new Heroquest. I've been trying to get that. I've been trying to bring back remnants and nostalgia from my childhood. I wasn't looking for a new game system. I could have just gotten AlterQuest for that. Or any of the other dungeon crawlers. And there are other dungeon crawlers available that will do Heroquest but better. Where Heroquest shines, where Heroquest can be best, is as what it was, as a nostalgia-based product. In every other area, it would have likely been a letdown. Almost certainly. The hope, the promise, the idea of a re-envisioned, reimagined Heroquest is great. But the reality is unlikely to have been what we would have wanted from it. And that's something we have to wrap our heads around. There's no possibility of a letdown here. What can you be let down by? The letdown happened as soon as you got to the Kickstarter page, and from there you move on. You either back it or you don't. But you will never get HeroQuest, or hopefully, assuming you read this page, assuming you know it's not an updated version, you will not back this game, get this game, and be let down by Hasbro. You might be let down by your own nostalgia. But that's the rose-colored glasses of seeing things the way they were. That's not Hasbro's fault that you were let down by nostalgia, that's your own. Hasbro took down the possibility of Hasbro letting you down. And it's nothing against them. I think they would have let you down because this is not their field. This is not their expertise. Tell me the last designer game you've played from Hasbro. They exist, sure, but they're not easy to come to mind. Hasbro is not a huge player in our field. They are a huge player in their field. And to that end, they are doing this well. They are releasing a nostalgia collector-based product to the public. One that you and I are not interested in, or potentially not interested in, but that's not necessarily a problem. Not everything has to be catered to what we want, what you want, what I want. There's always going to be an audience, and $1.5 million for what is basically an older game reprinted is certainly not a bad thing. And that's overall, I guess, a summary of why I don't think the older edition being re-released, the original game being re-released without any changes is a problem. I think it's a good business move. I think there is a target audience, clearly. I think it's a good business move for Hasbro. Clearly, not clearly, I guess that one we could debate, depends on where it could have been. It's just a question of who their target audience is. That's the part that we have to wrap our heads around. Who is the target audience for what is a re-release of an original game? As far as the choice of Hasbro Pulse versus Kickstarter, that one's also, again, I understand the initial arguments against it. First of all, from a consumer-friendly stance, I'm with you. The fact that you're pushing people away from Kickstarter to your own specific platform, people might do it, don't get me wrong, but it's certainly not fun. Kickstarter is an established place for a reason. Now, we can have a debate as to the fact that Kickstarter is basically a monopoly on board games, which is a bit of a problem in and of itself. Sure, Indiegogo has something, but barely anything in comparison to Kickstarter. So there's a separate debate as to there being a monopoly on Kickstarter, but I don't think Hasbro Pulse is going to step in and fill that position. I don't think a game company's own platform is going to suddenly become the default platform for everyone else. So the Hasbro Pulse question, since it's not addressing the monopoly, probably not, rather it's a question of, okay, great, by directing people to their own platform, how many eyes did they lose out just to save that 10%? Because you save the 10% Kickstarter fees, that's a big deal. That would be the initial reason. Well, of course they put it on their own platform, they saved 10%. But they're stupid because they could have sold twice as many copies on Kickstarter and then would have been more than made up for it. And the math probably works out. You have to factor in cost of goods. You do have to factor that in. How much does it cost to actually make the product? Because if it costs, let's just make up a number, if it costs $50 to them to make this product and sell it for $100 and $10 is off the top, well then you have to figure out, you're making $40 per game as opposed to $50 per game on their own platform. So you'd have to figure out the exact cost, how many extra copies you have to sell. Because they will for sure sell extra, I'll grant you that. But how many extra is a different conversation. You have to do the math and figure it out. But I will grant you, they probably would have sold enough to cover that 10% discount, to cover that 10% fee, and still make more money on Hasbro Pulse. So why use Hasbro Pulse? What are the upsides? It's a stupid business move, right? It's terrible, horrible. They would have sold much more on Kickstarter. So the first reason, and this is not a small thing, is by using Hasbro Pulse, they took away the comment section. This is not a community-based platform with its own community rules. It's out of the picture. It's gone. There's no conversation, there's no opening for people to sit there and have this toxic conversation about how disappointed they all are in the comments. Right now, we ultimately have one indicator of how happy people are, and that indicator is in the form of $1.4 million. There is no other indicator in the background of how upset people are about this Kickstarter. The amount of, no, not Kickstarter, game. The amount of people who back a Kickstarter, myself included by the way, who will express their dissatisfaction, and this is where I don't include myself because it depends how you express your dissatisfaction, but there are people who will involve themselves in a project and then complain, often toxically, about that project, which is a fascinating paradigm. Be involved or don't, and in my case, I tend to make decisions at the end of the day in what I actually want to do based on the decisions at hand. I generally try to avoid being toxic. I think that's a bad thing, but certainly the whole idea, the whole concept of expressing negative feedback is a very real thing that happens on Kickstarter. And with Heroquest, we don't have that. We just have people who are unhappy with the product, who we kind of all just imagine aren't backing it, and people who are clearly happy with the product and are backing it. So they did remove that aspect, that degree of just general upsetness, the general toxicity that can happen when a giant Kickstarter project does not meet expectations. And to a certain extent, this will be a giant project that does not meet expectations. The second thing, and this is a big one, this is a huge one. Raise your hand if you've heard of Hasbro Pulse before last week. Raise your hand if you've heard of Hasbro Pulse this week. Because I don't know about you, but Hasbro Pulse wasn't on my radar. Do you know how many people know about Hasbro Pulse now? Do you know how many people have heard about Hasbro Pulse now? Do you know how many people hop to the Kickstarter page because Heroquest and click to open up Hasbro Pulse and see what else? Ooh, shop now. What do they have here? This is their own platform. This is their own platform with tons of extra things that people can buy. If you are purely looking at this, ooh, a Groot shirt. Is this Groot? No, that's Transformers. Can I find anything cool? I'm actually not that interested in this stuff. If you purely look at this platform as an opportunity to sell Heroquest, I believe they will get less money here. But this is not just a platform to sell Heroquest. This is something that millions of people, I imagine, I don't know the actual number, millions of people have now heard of Hasbro Pulse when they never had before. Every single person who clicked to buy this game, all 13,000, I can't do the math, but something like 13,000 people, whatever it is, they potentially clicked on Hasbro Pulse, looked at other things, and bought a little Charles Xavier and Logan action figure for $49.99. Hasbro Pulse, this is basically a giant marketing campaign for Hasbro Pulse. It worked. 1 million people have heard of Hasbro Pulse. Now granted, I'm never coming back. I mean, I don't plan on coming back. There's nothing here that interests me. But again, this is a nostalgia-based collectible. The people who are backing this are likely very interested in other things in the genre. And by the way, I guess I sometimes do this, but in the comments down below, let me know if you went to Hasbro Pulse, if you clicked around, and let me know if you bought something. I'd be very interested. I mean, again, but I don't think there'll actually be a lot of comments like that because I think most of the audience here is not necessarily the target audience for what's going on here. But factor that in. The product being sold here is Hasbro Pulse just as much as it is Heroquest. Which is why this whole concept of, well, Heroquest could have made $5 million day one. Maybe. But what's the long-term benefit to Hasbro here? What is the long-term benefit to getting a collectible that is incredibly expensive to get your hands on, putting it on your platform, and all these links, and you scroll down to the bottom of that page, you don't have to click away. Scroll down to the bottom of this page, and ooh, what do we have here? Oh, My Little Pony crossover for $12.99. I'm glad my daughter didn't see this. She would have wanted me to get it. Or Baby Yoda for $15.99. I mean, Baby Yoda's adorable. This is a little speeder. What, I don't know what this is, but who cares? It looks good. There are other things to buy on Hasbro Pulse, and I do like Baby Yoda, and my daughter does like My Little Pony, the little pink pony Power Ranger. I don't know what's going on here. But either way, if you understand that Hasbro Pulse is the product being sold just as much as Heroquest, it changes the entire conversation as to what makes sense for Hasbro to do. And those are basically my reasons why not releasing a new game and not choosing Kickstarter, while frustrating to a lot of people, I don't think they're actually the wrong move. I think for Hasbro, they're definitely the right move, and depending on who the target audience is, it's the right move as well. Hasbro was never going to release a game that I liked. I would have debated it, I would have questioned it, I would have been torn about the fact that it looks good, but they were never going to release a game that gave me the confidence that they could rival other games out there. And by the way, I'm excited about Alter Quest. Super excited about that one. That was basically a gamer game produced to redrive what Heroquest was, but from a new modernized standpoint. We have that already. We don't need Heroquest 2.0. I'm not against it, but a reprint, a revision of the original Heroquest is just fine. As far as the should you back it, 20 minutes into this video, should you back this game? That is an excellent question. And it's a tough one, which is why this video is not called Should You Back It in line with my usual stuff, because of the fact that it's not my standard thing. It's a board game collectible and not a board game. The people buying this game are not looking for a standard board game. They're looking for a collectible product. And so the question is, what will hold its value here? Because the base game here will certainly be sold for, down the road. It'll certainly be sold by Hasbro. I don't know the price point, and that's part of the problem here, is I don't know what the price point from Hasbro on a re-released Kickstarter game will be. There are exclusives, so let's go through that. So your options over here, the pledge levels, we have a $99 pledge level, which gives you the basic Heroquest, and we have the $149 pledge level, which gives you the Mythic tier with basically everything included. Off the bat, I'll say I recommend the Mythic tier if you're going to get this at all, because it depends what your goal is. If your goal is nostalgia, then just go with whatever you think drives the most nostalgia. If your goal is something that will hold its value, if your goal is something that will be a good game, I just recommend passing out of hand. If your goal is something that will potentially hold its value, that maybe you want to try Heroquest, maybe it will be a good fit, maybe you have fond memories, but you still want to get something that will hold its value, I think the Mythic tier is still the way to go there. It's at the end of the day, it's not significantly more, and it gives you 2 full expansions plus extras. As far as what you get the heroes. You get all these resculpted barbarian, dwarf, wizard, and elf. The digital, print, digital sculpts and whatnot. These are not the final product, obviously, but they probably will be arguably better than the original Heroquest, although it depends on your opinion of different sculpts and whatnot. We have the limited time exclusive of Sir Ragnar, and we have, I thought we had more exclusives. We have the pulse bonus. What's the pulse bonus? We have the barbarian. I don't know what this pulse bonus is, because I missed this. These are the exact same miniatures. I'm not sure what the pulse bonus is. So we have the limited time exclusive for if you get it from, from them. We have the monsters. We have the Dread Sorcerer, the Dread Warriors, the skeletons. We have the gargoyle. This is not a gargoyle. This is a gargoyle. This is an abomination. This is an actual abomination. That's the Heroquest guy right there. But in any case, and he really is the Heroquest guy. The Bardic whatever is really the face of Heroquest at this point. Not Hasbro, not Heroquest. The face of Heroquest is the Bard. And so we have the Gargoyle, we have the Dread Sorcerer, the Dread Warriors, we have the Abominations, which are previously called the Fenrir, I believe, so it would be, this is a Fenrir, this is an Abomination, which I guess now if you Google Heroquest Abomination, you're still going to get the Bard. You're still going to get the Bard if you Google Heroquest Abomination. We have the dungeon decor, we have the doors, the Sorcerer's Table, all the new dungeon. This is something that Heroquest was famous for having these beautiful little prints of, just terrain and whatnot. We have Return of the Witch Lord, which gives you all this stuff over here, with more limited time exclusives for Kickstarter stuff. We have Keller's Keep, which gives you more stuff. Mythic tier we have over here. Okay, then we got the unlocks when the stretch goals are met. We have the Warlock Hero, which will be added to the game. We have 6 extra combat dice, which, as much as I want to complain about $200,000 to get 6 combat dice, I will say I don't like it when games charge to get enough dice to actually play it, so I guess technically I'm a fan of that, although I'm still not getting this game. We have extra skeletons, extra goblins, a quest book by Stephen Baker when they hit 2 million, and with 45 days to go, again, I think they'll easily hit 3 million, probably closer to 4 or 5. There are a lot of people who will want this product from a nostalgia stance. The extras certainly don't hurt. The question is, should you back it? Will these extras be worth enough to justify whatever difference you are paying here compared to what you would pay at retail and whatnot? My instinctive answer is yes. But understand that this comes with a hedge of this is more of a collectible than a board game. It is slightly out of my field. This is basically the opportunity for people to get Heroquest stuff that falls into this mid-range of a new collectible, not the original collectible, but maybe you'll still want the new collectible. Depends on what you want it for or why you want it. Again, instinctively, I believe this will still hold its value. But again, because it's not my field, I'm less willing to double down on that. That is basically everything on Heroquest. The should you back it, should you not. If you are looking for a nostalgia-based product, I think this is a great opportunity. If you are looking for an actual good game, I recommend passing on this and checking out any of the other games currently in existence, coming, or future Kickstarters, because there will always be more games that give you the promise and the vision of what Heroquest gave you that just aren't Heroquest anymore. I am Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this counter-argument to all the disappointment around Heroquest. For me personally, the biggest thing is that Heroquest was never going to make me happy. So it's fine that they chose to instead target the people who actually did have a chance of getting what they want out of it. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.